Welcome to this episode of Ask the Guitar Coach, the only podcast where you get answers to all your guitar-related questions. If you're interested in developing your guitar skills and reaching your music goals, please send me an email at the email address ioannis@ioannis.org. That is IOANNIS at IOANNIS.org, so that I can let you know about all the different packages of elite guitar coaching and how you can get private coaching by me. Without further ado, let's go to our question for the day. How do you find musical ideas for your own original compositions? Oh, this is a really good question. I wish there was one concrete, specific answer I could give. There are so many different things and so many different ways that these compositions will start getting together into my mind. I will try to clarify 5 or 6 ways that I use to compose, but it's definitely not a definitive list. So let's get started. So sometimes I will just get an idea for a specific intro riff that will springboard the whole composition. This was the case with my 2007 Suspension of Disbelief. So I was practicing my pick and fingers hybrid picking technique, and I came up with a lick which goes like this. So through this lick I started recording and I started practicing playing over different harmonies, and things starting developing from there. So one way is just finding the main riff, and then things flow on from there. So method number two. Method number two is actually, sometimes I will find and basically sing a simple melody. And then this melody becomes the basis for the whole piece. A good example of that would be Astro Chicken, what's the name of the song? Astro Chicken's Victorious Attack. Yes, that was in my 2009 CD, Orbital Attempt, and it's actually one of my video clips. So this has a very basic melody. Let me demonstrate. So this is the main melody, and it's a very simple melody, just a basic pattern that gets repeated with a different ending. But this is how the composition got started. So I started playing this, changing chords, and then changed key, did the chorus, did the pre-chorus, did the key change. So it all started like that. So the third way I would compose music would be by finding a specific riff. So just a heavy, meaty riff, and then building the composition on top of that. In this case, the riff would come first. So it's not a melody, it's not even a specific lick that you could base the composition on, it's a heavy riff. Here's an example from my song Power Gambit, and this is where the riff came first, and then on that riff we started developing the composition. And so on and so forth. So this was the basis of that specific composition. Now, moving on to even more interesting stuff. Sometimes I will just have a concept in my mind, not a specific phrase, but a concept. Like this was the case with my song, The Caravan of Despair. You can Google it if you want, and I will just put the link in the description of the song for those of you who are interested to listen to that, where I actually had kind of a vision of a long caravan going through the desert, and then by trying to make music with this vision, this is how the song came into existence. The similar thing happened with my most progressive, let's say, composition called Progressive Minds, which is like a 13-minute song. And once again, the idea was to give homage to several of the guitar players that influenced me in my playing, in all of them together in one composition. So it's not like I'm going to have a song that is based on the stuff that Yngwie Malmsteen would be doing, is I would get several of those players, like maybe 7 or 10 players, and then play one song that has stuff that sounds like each one of them. That's, I wouldn't say sounds, it's more like influence from each one of them. So there you have it. These are the first 4 ways I try to compose music, and sometimes there's a 5th way. And this is the cases where I have like an exercise or a little phrase that I usually would play to develop my technique, or I give to my students, and then this phrase would just start the songwriting process. This was the case with the song Weird Thing, which I played with Kiko Loureiro, and which goes like this. And so on and so forth. So this idea is actually an exercise for sweeping, for combining sweeping with legato on minor 7 arpeggios. And when I first started it, I remember it being in my mind and just thinking, oh, I could do something with that, I could do something with that. So when I went to the studio, I started doing something with it, and it ended up becoming one of my most favorite pieces. So what can you learn from this lengthy, let's say, talk about my composition process? That there basically is no one single way to whatever works for you, and also that you can get inspiration out of everything or anything. And one thing that I usually get very often as a side question, I never compose the whole composition before going to the studio. I do have some parts composed, and then the rest of them are composed on the spot. Nothing wrong with composing things from before, but you don't have to do it. So there you have it. I hope this was helpful in clarifying my composition process, and I will see you in the next episode of Ask the Guitar Coach. Until then, have fun shredding and keep those questions coming. Bye bye.